Welcome to the deep dive. You know that feeling when you've been just staring at your screen for an hour?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, and your thumb is literally physically tired from swiping. Your brain feels completely foggy, and like if someone asked you to name a single thing you just looked at, you'd draw an absolute blank.
Right, you can't remember a single post.
Exactly. It's this very specific kind of modern exhaustion. It
Hmm.
just feels like the internet is draining us. And I mean, we've all been there, right?
Yeah,
And frankly, most of us just accept it as the cost of living in the digital age.
yeah. We just think it's normal.
Right. But what if that exhaustion isn't a personal failure?
Hmm.
What if it's, structural disease? Because today we have a mission. We are going to explore this highly unusual, genuinely fascinating diagnostic and architectural blueprint that, well, it promises to actually cure our collective internet exhaustion.
It is a remarkable document, really. And what makes it so unique is its origin, because this is a text dated today, May 18th, 2026, and it's titled The Concentric Web, Architecture for a Conscience-Driven Digital Commons.
And the authorship alone is worth pausing for, honestly,
Oh, definitely.
because it's the result of a joint generative session between Paul Yee, who is a cross-cultural psychological analyst, and Claude, an AI. Together, they spent a single morning mapping out this, like, massive reimagining of how the internet fundamentally operates.
Right, and they aren't talking about, launching a new app or tweaking a recommendation algorithm.
No, not at all.
They are proposing a wholesale migration of our digital infrastructure.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because they are talking about transitioning the entire globe from the attention economy, which, you and I are painfully familiar with,
Familiar.
transitioning from that to a conscience economy. And we were going to explore exactly how they plan to pull that off.
But
But I guess to build a new web, we first have to understand exactly what is broken about the current one.
right, and the document starts with this clinical assessment of our current 14-year-old attention economy. And they don't use the typical, tech bro jargon.
Right, no synergy or disruption.
Exactly. They use very specific, neutral, clinical terms. And the first one is fatigue.
Fatigue.
Yeah. They define this as the burnout that comes from constant shallow production. It's an architecture that demands constant output without ever offering any depth.
Oh, wow.
And then the second term is even more striking. They call it sleepiness.
Sleepiness. Wait, like the infrastructure itself is what, nodding off at the wheel?
More like it is actively sleepwalking. The text basically argues that the infrastructure of the web has become somnambulant.
Somnambulant.
Right. I mean, think about it. It registers our inputs, it spits out outputs, it performs its functions, but it doesn't actually notice human beings anymore.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, it has stopped responding to our deeper needs, and it has certainly stopped surprising anyone. It's entirely rigid.
Let me try to put that into a physical context for the listener.
Sure.
It's like the web has spent 14 years forcing us to do one single repetitive bicep curl.
Oh, that's a good way to put it.
Right. Just scroll, click, react. Scroll, click, react. And we're doing this without any rest, without any change in the weight or the depth of the movement.
Just endless reps.
Exactly. Until the muscle simply gives out. You just can't do another rep. But the system, I mean, it doesn't care that your arm is failing. It just keeps feeding you the next scroll.
That captures the mechanical exhaustion perfectly, I think. And what's fascinating here is the authors use deliberate vocabulary. They lean heavily into words of wakefulness rather than words of, revolt or destruction.
Okay.
They actually draw on this idea of conscientization.
Wait, let's define that. Conscientization.
Yeah, it is a concept developed by the Brazilian educator Paulo Freire. It translates broadly to achieving deep critical awareness of one's social reality.
Like waking up to the matrix, essentially.
Basically, yeah. It's the process of waking up to the systems that govern you. So the authors diagnose the current web with conscience fatigue in a condition they call virolatagism.
Virolatagism. Man, that sounds like a virus.
It does. It's actually a Brazilian term, essentially meaning an internalized sense of inferiority or, like, subordination.
Oh, really?
Yeah. In this context, the web has an internalized subordination to the attention economy. It has literally forgotten it can be anything else.
It thinks its only purpose is to harvest clicks.
Right. But because they diagnose the web as sleeping rather than, dying or being fundamentally evil, it offers immense hope.
Because you can wake someone up.
Exactly. A sleeping body, no matter how deeply unconscious, can be woken up.
I really appreciate that optimistic framing. But, a new philosophy is only half the battle. If the web is stuck sleepwalking on this flat, exhausting treadmill, how do we physically redesign it to wake us up?
Right.
Because we need actual architecture here, not just a nice metaphor.
Well, that leads us directly to their core architectural proposition, which is the concentric five-sphere architecture.
Okay, moving inward through 5 spheres, it sounds highly philosophical. But practically speaking, isn't that just, adding unnecessary clicks?
How do you mean?
Well, right now the web is lateral. I open a tab, I scroll down an infinite feed, I swipe sideways. It's a flat, endless space. They want to shift the web to a bounded inward descent. You literally travel inward through concentric rings.
Right.
So does this mean every single website on Earth has to be destroyed and rebuilt from scratch to fit into these rings? Because that sounds utterly impossible to enforce.
Oh, it would be completely impossible. But the brilliance of their proposal is something called the one-click bridge.
Okay.
So existing sites don't have to dismantle a single thing. A local news site, a global retailer, they stay exactly as they are at their original URLs.
Oh, thank goodness.
Yeah, but they add a single button, a literal bridge that connects them to the outermost sphere of this new architecture, which is Sphere 5, the atmosphere.
Atmosphere.
Right, and it's hosted at picweb.ai. So the change happens through augmentation and invitation, not by, rupturing the existing internet.
So I'm on my regular browser, I hit this bridge button, and I cross into the atmosphere. Then what am I actually looking at?
You step into a structured descent. You move inward from Sphere 5 to Sphere 4, the measurement layer, which is called quantimetrica.
Quantimetrica.
And instead of outward metrics like follower counts, it measures the density and thoughtfulness of interaction. Then you go to Sphere 3, the chronological backbone called Calendar, which restores time as the organizing principle.
We'll definitely have to talk about time later.
Oh, for sure. From there to Sphere 2, the theme, which is a globally rotating daily focus zone. And finally, you reach the absolute center, Sphere 1, the instrument.
The instrument. Now, the document mentions this is powered by 2 engines, or like twin nuclei, Lingua Clara and Synamica.
Yes.
But let's pause there. What does that actually look like for you, the listener? If I make it to the center of this web, what are these engines actually doing for me?
So Lingua Clara is essentially the clear language processing engine. It ensures that complex concepts are translated not just linguistically, but culturally, making sure the actual intent survives the translation. And then Synamica is the dynamic synthesis engine. It connects those clear concepts to related ideas across the globe. This is where actual meaning construction and cross-cultural learning happen.
The document uses a fascinating fishing metaphor for this innermost sphere.
It does.
In the old web, you were basically walking down a brightly lit supermarket aisle. Everything is packaged to grab your attention instantly. You don't have to think, you just grab what's on the shelf.
Right. Zero effort.
But in Sphere 1, it's more like casting a line into a deep, dark pond. You submit an intention into Synamica, and you have to actually wait for the ecosystem to respond. You don't get 10 million instant SEO-optimized search results. You get a synthesized cross-cultural catch.
Which fundamentally changes your relationship with knowledge, right? From a quick transaction to an intentional relationship.
I love the idea of that.
Yeah.
But I have to play the skeptic here.
Please do.
Humans are creatures of habit. What stops us from showing up at this beautiful deep pond and just treating it exactly like a shallow social media feed?
Right.
What stops us from rapid-fire clicking until we get the dopamine hit we are addicted to?
Well, the authors anticipate that exact vulnerability.
Yeah.
Because if you build a new mindful space without physically changing the friction of how we interact with it, a phenomenon they call bananization will occur.
Bananization. Let me guess, slipping back into old habits.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The quiet, inevitable return of fast, shallow, reactive scrolling. So to prevent this from happening, they engineered a structural friction directly into the interface. They call it the paradinha.
Paradinha.
Yeah. It translates roughly from Portuguese as a deliberate, slight pause. They propose engineering a literal 160th of a second delay into the actual scroll and react gestures on the screen.
Wait, a fraction of a second. I'm still
Okay.
stuck on this. 160th of a second pause is essentially a microscopic speed bump. How does that actually stop me from mindless scrolling?
Because that microscopic delay targets the neurological loop. The current attention economy relies on zero-friction interfaces to keep your brain in a reflexive, somnambulant state.
Oh, so you don't even realize you're doing it.
Exactly. But by introducing a consistent 160th of a second delay, you introduce an almost imperceptible physical weight to the digital action.
Wow.
It forces the brain out of its purely reflexive loop. It physically interrupts the infinite scroll just enough to remind your brain that you are performing an action.
That is wild. But, you know, a tiny speed bump doesn't change the destination. If the system is forcing us to pause, and we can't just mindlessly click a like button to get our fix anymore, what is the actual alternative?
Right.
How do we register our approval or interaction in this new space?
Well, we have to evaluate what current validation metric actually measure. Think about the tools we have now: likes, upvotes, citations.
Let's look at those, because likes measure an emotional knee-jerk reaction.
Yep.
Upvotes just measure crowd popularity, which we know
So-
could be manipulated entirely by bots.
Very easily.
Citations are rigorous, sure, but they take years to get published and are completely gatekept by academia. None of these mechanisms actually measure conscience.
Which is why they propose replacing the like button entirely with a new protocol, and they call it the V stamp.
Okay, here's where it gets really interesting. Imagine you, yes, you listening to this right now, are reading an incredible article in Sphere 1. Instead of double tapping to leave a heart, you attach a V stamp. How does that change the experience?
Well, a V stamp is closer to a scholarly endorsement, but it's available to everyone. When you attach it, you aren't just saying this is cool, you are officially attaching a piece of your own digital conscience to that artifact.
Oh, wow.
And critically, every V stamp leaves a time-stamped trajectory.
So it goes further than just a static number. It creates a visible history.
Exactly. It maps out how conscience gathered around an idea over days, months, and years. And inherently, this architectural structure defeats bot farms. The document refers to it as a temporal fingerprint. Think about a bot farm. Its entire purpose is to flood an artifact with engagement to game an algorithm.
Right.
Under the V-stamp protocol, if an artifact gets, say, 3,000 validation stamps in a single 6-hour window from the exact same geographic cluster.
The system catches it.
Yes, but the system doesn't just hide it or let it manipulate a feed. It openly displays that cluster.
Oh, I see. The temporal fingerprint makes it look exactly like what it is.
Yeah.
Artificial manipulation. A human idea spreads organically across time zones and cultures over weeks. A bot farm hits all at once. The visual shape of the validation reveals the truth.
Exactly. The transparency itself is the defense mechanism.
Let me push back on this, though.
Okay.
Let's say I V-stamp an article, because I think it's a brilliant piece of journalism. My name, my conscience is publicly tied to it.
Right.
2 years later, a massive scandal breaks out.
Yeah.
It turns out the creator fabricated all their data. They're a total fraud. Can I just log in, unstamp the article, and quietly hide my mistake from my public record?
Oh.
Wait, really?
Not at all. And this is a strict non-negotiable rule in the architecture. They call it the non-revocation rule.
Okay.
V-stamps are permanent for historical legibility. The philosophical stance here is that the historical record cannot be sanitized just so individuals can save face. You cannot erase your past validation.
Wow. Okay, that is slightly terrifying. That forces a massive amount of accountability on the user. If I know I can never delete my endorsement, I am going to be incredibly careful about what I stamp.
Exactly. But what you can do, however, is add a reconsidered stamp.
Okay.
It generates a new timestamp, and the system prompts you to provide a brief reason for the change in your stance. So the original validation remains visible, but so does the evolution of your thought.
So nothing is erased, context is simply added.
Precisely. Furthermore, they pair this entire action with a thoughtfulness threshold.
Meaning, I can't just click the V-stamp and immediately move on to the next tab. I am literally forced to select why I am validating the content. Is it for moral courage, linguistic precision, deep cultural insight? The interface forces me to categorize my own conscience before it even accepts my validation.
Right. And by enforcing that threshold, it completely inverts the incentive structure of the attention economy.
Yeah.
In the old web, clicking like rewarded the content creator with a quick dopamine hit and an algorithmic boost.
Yeah.
In the V-stamp economy, the primary reward goes to the validator.
Oh, interesting.
Because over time, you are building a public, highly visible track record of your own considered thought. Your history of validation becomes a core part of your digital identity.
But to accurately map these V-stamp trajectories over years and decades, without relying on corporate servers that constantly manipulate our feeds behind the scenes, we have to change something even more fundamental. The document argues we have to restructure the underlying backbone of the internet itself: time.
Yes. Time in Sphere 3 is not just a boring metadata tag. It is the ultimate anti-manipulation infrastructure.
I always just thought of internet time as, the little numbers at the top of my screen. It's just the metadata attached to a file. How is that a profound tool for decolonizing anything.
Well, if we connect this to the bigger picture,
Yeah.
think about how we measure time historically. The authors point out that clocks and calendars have always been instruments of imperial power.
Oh, sure.
The Julian calendar imposed Roman authority across conquered lands. The Gregorian calendar carried papal authority.
And Greenwich Mean Time in 1884.
Was a direct imposition of British imperial standardization.
Oh, wait. Let me actually think about that for a second. Greenwich is in London. So the entire global baseline for time, the 0 point for how the world coordinates commerce and history, was literally set by the British Empire at the height of its colonial power.
Yep.
I never even processed that.
Yeah.
Whoever sets the clock sets the rules. Every time we name the shared moment, it's a political act.
It absolutely is. So to counter this, the authors propose pairing two concepts. The first is AIWI Universal Time, abbreviated as AUT. AUT. That is the philosophical worldview, the recognition that time is a shared human resource. And the second is calendar reference time, or KRT. That is the actual technical protocol.
So establishing KRT is a sovereignty-neutral declaration. It explicitly states that the digital temporal commons belongs to no nation, no corporate institution, and no tech billionaire. By renaming the shared digital moment, they are prospectively renouncing the colonial baggage of ownership.
Exactly.
But practically speaking, if I log on to this new web from my apartment in, let's say, São Paulo, Brazil, does my screen suddenly just show KRT instead of my normal morning time? Do I have to learn a whole new time zone just to read an article?
No, the engineering here is very elegant. They employ a concept called display layer separation.
Okay, what does that mean?
The underlying canonical timestamp, the KRT, is technically identical to UTC, Coordinated Universal Time. It functions perfectly for global forensic interoperability. A bank server in Tokyo or a database in Berlin reads the KRT perfectly.
Right.
But the display time on your personal screen provides what the authors call human warmth.
Meaning my screen still says 6:04 a.m.
Precisely. It records the KRT for deep forensic permanence, ensuring no one can manipulate the timeline. But it displays the local time for your human context. Both readings are true simultaneously.
Oh, that's brilliant.
Yeah, there is no tension between being culturally rooted in your local time zone and having a globally legible, incorruptible digital record. And to prove this universality isn't just a Western conceit, the document requires stringent translation tests.
Oh.
KRT has to translate cleanly and naturally into Mandarin, Portuguese, Spanish, French, and English to prove it lacks that imperial rigidity.
Okay, let's zoom out. Because we have a new bounded architecture with the 5 descending spheres, we have a thoughtful voting mechanism with the V-stamp that builds accountability, and we have a decolonized clock with KRT ensuring transparency.
Right.
But let's bring this down to earth. How does this highly abstract, theoretical system actually help real people in the future?
Well, the document provides some really vibrant, real-world scenarios that illustrate the actual stakes of this architecture. Imagine a scholar in the year 2074.
Okay.
They want to track how a specific philosophical concept spread across the world. In our current web, that's almost impossible. Links die, platforms go bankrupt, algorithms hide the past.
Oh yeah, link rot is real.
Exactly. But in the calendar registry, they can follow the V-stamp trajectory across 48 uninterrupted years. They can see exactly who validated the idea, in what languages, from what cultural spheres, in what exact sequence. They can literally replay the entire conscience history of an idea.
That is an incredible tool for a historian. But the scenario that really solidified the value for me was the Mozambican village teacher.
Oh, that's a powerful one.
Imagine it's 2031. This teacher, working with limited resources, coins a brilliant new pedagogical term. Let's say it's a Portuguese Bantu hybrid word. They publish it on the web. In our current structure, a massive, well-funded corporation in the global north might scrape that term, trademark it, write a best-selling book on it, and the teacher gets absolutely zero credit or compensation.
It happens all the time. The authors refer to that vulnerability as the aimic asymmetry, where well-resourced bad actors systematically outpace, outpublish, and steal from creators in the global south.
Right.
But with the combination of calendar and the V-stamp, the moment that teacher publishes the term, it is instantly locked with an incorruptible KRT timestamp. Over the next week, 6 other African educators V-stamp it, validating its origin. 3 months later, a Brazilian researcher V-stamps it.
So within a couple of years, this term has an undeniable, cryptographically secure, cross-cultural lineage of validation. It proves exactly who created it, where, and when. It functions as an institutional immune system against intellectual property theft.
Exactly. The true authorship is preserved by the protocol itself. not by expensive corporate lawyers or Western institutional prestige. If a bad actor tries to claim the concept as their own, the dispute is resolved in seconds simply by looking at the temporal trajectory.
That feels revolutionary, but the authors, Paul Yee and Claude, are incredibly humble about this blueprint.
Mhm.
They aren't declaring this document to be absolute law. They don't think they've solved the entire internet in a single generative session.
No, they recognize the massive scale of what they are proposing, and this raises an important question about how we validate new, complex systems.
Right.
To test their own blind spots, they subjected this architectural document to what they call quartet validation.
Right, the triangulated honesty test. The document is currently pending severe pressure testing by 4 distinct AI models, right?
Mhm.
Claude, ChatGPT, Notebook LM, and DeepSeek.
Exactly. They are seeking what they term triangulated honesty, not necessarily consensus. They are actively asking these other models to interrogate their work and find the flaws. They're asking the incredibly hard questions. Are these structural frictions, like the 160th of a second pause, actually enough to resist the overwhelming psychological gravity of the attention economy? Is the display layer separation of the clock too complex for normal developers to adopt? They want the architecture broken down and tested from every conceivable angle before it is formalized.
So what does this all mean for us? We started today by talking about that overwhelming sense of digital fatigue, the heavy thumb, the brain fog, the feeling that the internet is using us rather than the other way around.
Right.
This deep dive into the concentric web isn't just about a fun UI tweak or a hypothetical design project. It's a profound, deeply considered blueprint for migrating the world's digital infrastructure. It's a map designed to lead us out of an exhausting attention economy and into a globally synchronous, peer-validated registry of human conscience.
And it serves as a vital reminder that the digital systems that dictate our daily lives are not natural laws of physics. They are architectures. And architectures can be dismantled, or in this specific case, carefully bridged, bypassed, and redesigned to serve our higher human faculties.
If you are feeling that deep web fatigue right now, this document offers actual structural hope. It reminds us that the systems making us tired were engineered by humans and can therefore be re-engineered to treat us as active, awake thinkers rather than passive, sleepwalking scrollers.
It is a profound invitation to wake up.
And I want to leave you with a final thought to ponder, something that builds on everything we've just discussed. This document proposes a digital temporal commons where time and validation belong to everyone equally, finally stripped of colonial baggage and corporate algorithmic manipulation. If we actually adopt this new digital habit, if we start treating our daily online interactions as a permanent collective record of our conscience, how might that profound shift in accountability begin to radically change the way we interact in the real world?
Oh, that's the big question.
Right. If we become highly accountable, deeply thoughtful, and awake online, does that wake us up offline too? Does it change the way we vote, the way we debate, and the way we build trust in our physical communities?
The architecture changes the behavior, and over time, the behavior changes the culture.
The repetitive bicep curl is finally over. It's time to rest the muscle and wake up the mind. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. We'll catch you next time.